there are different schools of thought in economics. Is there a school of thought, maybe a new one, maybe not, that is considering this more this aspect of what actually brings people joy and happiness and fulfillment and satisfaction, and doesn't just look at human beings as players in this zero sum game, and just looking to maximize profit? Is there a
Well,
way, and is there a way to envision an economy that will work on those principles?
well, basically, if you look at the Nobel Prize winners in the last decade or so, as far as economics, most of them came from a school of thought which is called behavioral economics, which is something totally different because it puts the human behavior, the human nature, in the center, in the focus of everything, and it explains everything through human nature and human relations. And so this is like now the new consensus. The problem is that most of the behavioral economics concentrates around are we rational or aren't we rational in our behavior, but you don't hear any real voices that are actually trying to expand the behavioral economics into thinking, just wait a minute, the method is broken because of the way we treat each other, and it can be fixed by fixing the way we treat each other. This is something which you very seldom hear, if any. But basically, there are here and there are some voices, and I heard a couple of your previous shows, and I know that the Wisdom is Kabbalah actually speaks right, like this is like the dead center of the message you are trying to convey. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay, so I'll tell you what. We are. Let me throw this to you as a final thought for you, Ronen. So, okay, from the perspective of the wisdom of Kabbalah, things are not going to go back to normal. And even if I'm giving you now the Kabbalistic prediction, okay, and I want your input on this as an economist. Seth, help me out here if I'm missing out on something. So this virus is the first time in human history where there's a virus in a state where humanity is interconnected across the globe. There were plagues before, of course, but and there were many. Maybe they were even more contagious or more deadly. But humanity wasn't as interdependent and interconnected as it is today. And so, part of this evolutionary process that we are undergoing and that we're part of is to recognize that we are connected to each other. Nature is going to nudge us and push us at first gently towards this realization. And if we will consciously move towards it and begin to build our economy and our politics and our educational system and our entire world, all our social infrastructures, if we begin to build them with our interdependence and our connection in mind, and then begin to change our preferences and our values towards fostering and promoting human connection more than other material possessions and profit over people, etc., if we start to do that, even in our thinking, then we'll see the economy taking on a new shape that will be in balance. And otherwise, it's not going to go back to the old world. Even if it will look like it for a while, it's going to be worse until we make that shift. What would you say to that from an economist perspective?
Most of it sounds very reasonable. Economists likes the basic idea of invisible hand. I mean, we can't really explain everything, but just by each and every one of us that wants only to be selfish and take care of his own business, but because of the invisible hand, it means that actually the society as a whole benefits from our own individual efforts. That is why when I hear you speak about nature, and nature wants, and nature makes us, and nature decides, it doesn't really bothers me, because this is like equivalent. It's pretty similar to the invisible hands that the economists so very much like. Therefore, that's fine. I think the interdependency is also very, very clear, because right now we're seeing it looks like a train wreck. Everybody depends on everybody, and no one actually wins from the current state. So basically, your assumptions are I'm fine with them completely. And that is why I think that eventually, we live in the system. Now, if you obey and abide to the laws of the system, then the feedback you get from the system is a positive feedback. And if you enter a manual car and you neglect the clutch pedal, and you just try to by force switching gears, you ruin the car and your experience. But if you treat it according to the laws of the system, then you drive safely and enjoy your trip. That is why I think that if you're speaking about an independent world, which actually the laws of this world is us being together. So we need to create an economy, a system, which suits the laws of nature, of the invisible hand. If we do that, we'll get a positive feedback. If we neglect to do it, I think the current state shows what's the result, what the results are.
Beautifully put.
Ronen,
Beautifully put.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ronen. And thank you for coming with an open mind and an open kind of way of thinking for this interview. It was great to have you here.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, a lot of people here are asking and talking about debt and all that. So, if you have updates on where this is going or how, please come back and talk to us, because there has to be a way that people are going to still be able to do well in life, but it's going to have to be not at the expense of everyone else. It's clearly what nature is pushing us towards. Thanks a lot for joining us. I know
you guys, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ronen.
Asaf, while Ronen was speaking at the end there, I was thinking of this. I know it's been in like countless movies or ads or something where like two people are jockeying for a parking spot. And so there's one parking spot left in the garage, and this guy's going and this one's going, and he cuts her off, and he like, it's not, and like gets the spot, right? Get out of here, I got the spot.
Then you play it very cinematically. I can
thank you, thanks, yeah. So then the guy gets the parking spot, and he goes into his job interview, and he's waiting in the lobby. And then finally they say, okay, Mr. Jones, 10 o'clock, you can come in for your interview. And he goes and he sits down, and the person across from him is the person who he just, won the parking spot over. Right. And he says to himself, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. Right. So at that moment, the person who won the parking spot is now sitting there looking for the job. If you could go back in time, if you could understand the system, if they both arrived at the parking spot at the same time, and the person knew that that's my boss that I'm interviewing with, or the person felt that my good future is tied up with this person's good future. So, go ahead, take the parking spot. No problem. I'll find another one. Right. When we feel that, hold on, let me. When we feel that it's us versus the world, let me just tell our next guest that we're ready. When we feel that it's us versus the world, we have such a different worldview. But even in that simple kind of example, when we think that what's good for this person is good for me, is good for the whole here. So it just even like that, in that silly example, we can see how it changes our behavior, and we don't feel we lost anything. In fact, by giving them the parking spot, we feel like we gained something. It's just a different kind of psychological switch.
Yeah, I think
I don't hear you.
I think it's. You hear me now? Yeah,
I gotcha.
I think it's all about psychology. You can call it psychology. We need to go through. When we started the show, we talked about a spiritual revolution. Well, you know what? Kabbalist Yehuda Ashlag says that the spiritual revolution is preceded by a psychological one, meaning that, this is what it starts from, just changing our concept, our thinking with regards to what is pleasure, what is joy.